Easy, miss. I've got you.
On the whole, I'd say it's been swell.
Swell?
Superman wasn't just a superhero movie. It was Faith in Celluloid, a film that turned comic book panels into cinematic scripture and made grown audiences believe in impossible things. But behind the cape and the crystalline fortress, nothing was certain. The script went through dozens of rewrites. The lead actor was an unknown who beat out every major star in Hollywood, and the flying effects nearly killed the production multiple times. These are 15 weird facts about Superman, buried in the fortress where even Kryptonian technology couldn't predict the chaos that would create the ultimate hero. 1. Every major star in Hollywood auditioned. The search for Superman was the most publicized casting call in film history. Robert Redford, Paul Newman, Burt Reynolds, Warren Beatty, Steve McQueen, every A-list actor of the 70s was considered or auditioned. Sylvester Stallone campaigned hard for the role, fresh off Rocky's success. James Caan screen-tested. Even Muhammad Ali threw his hat in the ring, convinced he could play the Man of Steel. But director Richard Donner had a problem. They all looked like movie stars playing Superman, not Superman himself. Then Christopher Reeve walked in, a relative unknown from Juilliard with classical training and an earnest smile. At 6 feet 4 inches, with genuine vulnerability beneath obvious strength, he didn't just audition for Superman, he became him. Sometimes the biggest role goes to the person who doesn't need to act like they deserve it. 2. Marlon Brando made more than everyone else combined. Brando played Jor-El for exactly 13 minutes of screen time and earned $3.7 million plus a percentage of profits, more than the rest of the cast combined. He showed up for only 12 days of shooting, refused to learn his lines, and read them off cue cards placed around the set. During the Fortress of Solitude scenes, Brando suggested Jor-El should appear as a green bagel or a suitcase to represent alien intelligence. The producers politely declined. Despite his eccentric behavior, Brando's presence lent the film gravitas it desperately needed. His portrayal of Superman's father as a godlike figure speaking in Shakespearean tones made the comic book mythology feel epic rather than silly. For 13 minutes of work, he helped transform Superman from children's entertainment into modern legend, proving that sometimes the most expensive actors are worth every impossible penny. 3. The flying effects were revolutionary disaster. "You'll believe a man can fly" became the marketing slogan, but making flight believable nearly destroyed the production. The effects team tried everything: wires, pulleys, blue screen, front projection, optical compositing. Reeves spent months suspended on increasingly complex rigs, enduring painful harnesses that left him bruised and exhausted. Early wire work looked fake, so they built a 40-foot crane system. When that failed, they suspended him from helicopters. One sequence required Reeve to be yanked 200 feet into the air at high speed. He nearly passed out from G-forces. The breakthrough came with front projection combined with multiple exposure techniques, but it took 2 years to perfect. Every flying shot was an engineering nightmare that pushed 1970s technology beyond its limits. The result was movie magic that convinced audiences, but behind every soaring moment was an actor risking serious injury for the illusion of effortless flight. 4. Gene Hackman refused to shave his mustache. Hackman agreed to play Lex Luthor with one non-negotiable condition: he wouldn't shave off his mustache. This created a problem since Luthor is famously bald and clean-shaven. The makeup department tried everything: special adhesives, custom bald caps, creative camera angles. Nothing worked convincingly. Finally, they convinced Hackman to shave half his mustache for close-ups, using a fake mustache for the other half during non-Luthor scenes. But Hackman hated the bald cap, calling it uncomfortable and ridiculous. He spent most of filming complaining about the makeup process, which actually made his Luthor more convincingly irritated and villainous. The irony was perfect. Hackman's real frustration with his costume became Luthor's character-defining petulance. Sometimes the best villain performances come from actors who are genuinely annoyed about their working conditions, channeling personal irritation into fictional menace. 5. The Fortress of Solitude was made of salt and styrofoam. Superman's crystalline sanctuary looked like alien architecture carved from pure energy, but it was actually constructed from tons of salt, styrofoam, and carefully painted plywood. The art department spent months creating the illusion of impossible crystal formations using the most mundane materials available. Massive salt deposits were sculpted and lit from within to create the glowing crystal effect. Styrofoam was carved into intricate geometric patterns, then covered with reflective materials and backlit. The famous crystal control panels were painted wood with colored lights hidden underneath. The scale was enormous. They built a full-size set large enough for actors to walk through, complete with towering crystalline walls that reached the studio ceiling. When lit properly, the humble materials transformed into something genuinely otherworldly. The fortress proved that movie magic doesn't require expensive materials, just infinite creativity and careful lighting to make salt look like salvation. 6. John Williams almost didn't compose the score. Williams was busy with Close Encounters and wasn't initially available. The producers approached several other composers, including Jerry Goldsmith and Maurice Jarre, but when Williams finally read the script, he changed his mind completely. He saw Superman not as a children's comic book, but as modern American mythology that deserved a classical approach. His Superman theme became one of cinema's most recognizable pieces of music, triumphant, heroic, and impossibly optimistic. Williams spent months perfecting the main theme, trying dozens of variations before finding the perfect combination of power and hope. The march-like rhythm suggested strength, while the soaring melody conveyed flight and freedom. Recording required a full orchestra and multiple sessions to capture the epic scope Williams envisioned. That iconic opening fanfare almost never existed, but when it finally did, it didn't just announce Superman, it announced the birth of the modern superhero film genre. 7. Christopher Reeve trained with a former Mr. Universe to transform from lanky theater actor into convincing Superman. Reeve underwent a brutal physical transformation supervised by David Prowse, the bodybuilder who played Darth Vader. Prowse designed a regiment that added 30 pounds of muscle to Reeve's 6 feet 4 inches frame in just 6 months. The training was relentless. 2 hours of weights every morning, followed by gymnastics, horseback riding, and flight rehearsals. Reeve had never seriously lifted weights before, but Prowse pushed him through pain barriers that left him barely able to move some days. The diet was equally strict: high protein, precisely calculated calories, no exceptions. By filming, Reeve had developed the physique of a genuine superhero, but more importantly, he'd developed the confidence. The physical transformation changed how he carried himself, making him believable as someone who could leap tall buildings. Sometimes becoming a hero requires literally building yourself into heroic proportions, one painful repetition at a time. 8. The Krypton Destruction took 6 months to film. The destruction of Superman's home planet wasn't just an opening sequence, it was a technical masterpiece that nearly broke the production schedule. The effects team built multiple detailed models of Kryptonian cities, each one designed to be destroyed in spectacular fashion. They used controlled explosions, collapsing miniatures, and innovative optical effects to create planetary annihilation. The challenge was making the destruction feel cosmic rather than terrestrial. This wasn't just a building collapsing, but an entire world dying. They shot the destruction sequences over and over, using different angles, lighting, and timing to capture every moment of Krypton's death. The crystal architecture required special pyrotechnics that wouldn't just explode, but would shatter like actual crystal. Each take destroyed irreplaceable models that took weeks to build. The sequence cost more than many entire films, but it established Superman's origin with genuine gravitas. The death of a world had to feel worthy of spawning the ultimate hero. 9. Ned Batty Improvised. Most of Otis's comedy, Lex Luthor's bumbling henchman Otis, wasn't supposed to be funny. He was written as a simple, menacing thug. But Ned Batty brought his own interpretation to the role, turning Otis into a lovable fool whose incompetence made Luthor seem even more brilliant by comparison. Most of Otis's funniest moments were improvised on set, with Batty playing against Hackman's increasingly frustrated Luthor. The famous scenes where Otis misunderstands complex plans or accidentally sabotages schemes came from Batty's background in comedy and his chemistry with Hackman. Director Richard Donner encouraged the improvisation, realizing that comic relief would make the film more accessible to families. Beatty's performance balanced the film's serious mythology with genuine humor that never undermined Superman's heroic moments. 10. The Daily Planet globe was stolen during production. The iconic Daily Planet building, topped with its massive spinning globe, was filmed at the News Building in New York. But during production, someone actually stole the real globe from the roof. The theft made headlines, with reporters joking about Lex Luthor's involvement. The production had to halt certain exterior shots, while building management installed a replacement globe. Meanwhile, the film's prop department had built their own version for close-up shots, which looked more detailed and impressive than the original. When the real globe was eventually recovered, it had been taken by college students as a prank. The building owners decided to keep the film's prop version instead. The movie's fake Daily Planet globe became the real Daily Planet globe, a perfect example of how Superman's influence extended beyond the screen. 11. Margot Kder nearly drowned. Filming the helicopter scene. The famous helicopter rescue that introduces Superman to Metropolis almost killed Lois Lane. Kder was suspended from a real helicopter hundreds of feet above the city, held only by a harness and the helicopter's landing gear. During one take, strong winds caused the helicopter to bank sharply, and Kidder's safety line snapped. She dangled by one remaining cable, spinning helplessly as the pilot struggled to maintain control. The crew watched in horror as she swayed back and forth above busy New York streets. Emergency protocols kicked in, and they landed immediately, but Kder was traumatized by the near-death experience. She later said the terror in her voice calling for help wasn't acting. It was genuine fear. The sequence that introduced Superman as humanity's savior nearly required an actual rescue. 12. The time reversal ending almost wasn't used. Superman flying around Earth to reverse time and save Lois Lane was one of the most controversial decisions in superhero cinema. The original ending had Superman arriving too late, with Lois staying dead as consequence for his failure to choose between being Clark Kent and Superman. Test audiences hated it, calling it too dark and depressing for a Superman film. The studio panicked. They'd spent enormous money on a family film that ended with the hero's failure and his beloved's death. Multiple alternative endings were shot, including versions where Superman saves Lois through different means. The time reversal solution was actually borrowed from the planned sequel, leaving Superman 2 without its original climax. 13. Two sequels were filmed simultaneously. Superman 2 was actually filmed at the same time as the original, an unprecedented undertaking that nearly broke everyone involved. Director Richard Donner shot both films as one massive production, jumping between storylines and keeping track of two separate plots simultaneously. The schedule was exhausting. Actors often didn't know which movie they were filming on any given day. Reeve had to maintain his physical conditioning for over 2 years of continuous shooting. The ambitious plan was designed to save money and maintain continuity, but it created logistical nightmares. Script changes in one film affected the other. Costume continuity became impossible to track, and the editing process was overwhelmingly complex. When budget overruns threatened the production, the studio fired Donner partway through Superman 2, bringing in Richard Lester to finish. 14. The phone booth scene. Nearly broke. Christopher Reeve. The iconic phone booth transformation seems simple. Clark Kent runs into a booth and emerges as Superman. But the sequence required precise timing, multiple camera angles, and split-second costume changes that pushed Reeve to his physical limits. He had to strip off the Clark Kent outfit, put on the Superman costume, and change his entire body language in under 30 seconds. The booth was rigged with hidden compartments, spring-loaded costume pieces, and carefully choreographed movements. Multiple takes were required because one small mistake ruined the entire illusion. Reeve practiced the change hundreds of times, developing muscle memory for every buckle, clasp, and cape positioning. The phone booth itself was specially constructed with breakaway panels and hidden storage spaces. What looked like simple movie magic required weeks of rehearsal and engineering precision. 15. The film's success changed. Hollywood Forever Superman didn't just succeed, it created the modern blockbuster template that Hollywood still follows today. Before Superman, Comic book movies were considered B-movie material for children and genre fans. Superman proved that superhero stories could carry massive budgets, A-list actors, and sophisticated production values while appealing to mainstream audiences. The film's marketing campaign was unprecedented, with merchandising deals, promotional tie-ins, and cross-platform branding that became standard practice. Its success convinced studios that genre material could be prestige entertainment, paving the way for every superhero film that followed. The movie's earnest approach to fantastic material, treating Superman's story as genuine mythology rather than camp, established the tone for serious superhero storytelling. Drop a comment below. What legendary film should we dive into next? Because in a universe full of heroes, some origin stories refuse to stay grounded.